Well, no doubt in the last few weeks you've noticed a spate of articles demonising cash, or at the very least celebrating its disappearance. Apparently, the number of bank notes in Australia in circulation is actually now in a fairly steady decline, something that we're supposed to feel good about, according to the media, because apparently that's bad for criminals or something like that. Don't think about your own personal privacy, don't think about your own use of cash. Just be glad that we, the honest people, can tap and go and trust that we'll be completely looked after, and we're going to get rid of cash for those pesky criminals. Now, that of course happens in the context of a situation like what we're seeing in the UK, where Nigel Farage, the UKIP leader and responsible in a large degree for the success of the Brexit campaign, was debanked. According to his bank, initially they said it was for financial reasons. He no longer met their elite criteria to be one of their exclusive clients. That has since been proven to be a lie. So here we have a situation where there is a war on cash in the media, there is debanking happening to high-profile celebrities and people with the wrong political ideas. But don't get smug, because just because you may not be a high-profile celebrity doesn't mean you're safe. It seems as though the war on cash and the war on banking, or the use of banking as a weapon in the cultural war, may very well be coming for very much ordinary people. My next guest may take umbrage to being called an ordinary person. I'll find out in just a moment, but he has certainly experienced the reality of this problem for himself. Crispin Rovere joins me now, right now on the Aussie Wire. Crispin, I hope you don't mind being called an ordinary person, but I think it's fair to say that there was
I
no
definitely
particular
am.
there was no particular reason why you would have experienced what you have. Now, for those who don't know the story, it's been all over Twitter. I've been following it now for a few weeks, but bring us up to speed for those who just have absolutely no idea who you are or what's happened to you.
Sure. Well, Dover, I am an absolutely ordinary person, much like everybody else. And in Melbourne, I went to deposit $2,000 cash into my own bank account at a Westpac ATM. Now, when I did so, all of my accounts were instantly frozen. I had to wait for a branch to go in to find out what was happening. And they told me that they needed to know where the money came from. And at first, when they asked me, I was like, "Well, out of my pocket, of course." Like, what kind of a question is that? And then it took a while for the penny to drop, because I thought, "Oh, this must be for my own protection. They're trying to protect me from fraud or scam." But they were trying to interrogate me as to where I was earning my own funds. And this was
Mm,
not a huge sum of money. This is
mm,
way below the amount necessary for AUSTRAC or any kind of money laundering issues. And it wasn't until there was a significant media blow up that it all got sorted out. Now, I thought the issue was over. I was, appalled by that
mm,
intrusion. But
mm.
then I came to Perth and went to withdraw that money from Perth, went into a branch to take out the cash. And once again, my accounts were frozen, and they said, "Well, what do you need the money for? What are you going to use it for?" And then
Goodness.
when I said, "Look, it's none of your business. We've been down this road before. This was by this stage, I wasn't just a nobody. Like,
Mm,
everybody knew about this
mm,
issue around the world,
mm.
and yet they still froze my accounts." And then when I said, "Look, it's none of your business," they said, "Well, if you're not going to disclose to us what you need the money for, then we're not going to unfreeze your accounts. Thank you very much for contacting us. Goodbye." And if it wasn't for the extraordinary social media reach and people such
Mm.
as yourself sort of putting it out there, that would be the status today.
It's just extraordinary. Now, first of all, depositing money required an explanation as to where it came from. Now, I'm on board this idea of people using cash. There is a campaign going for people to use cash and to try and increase its usage in Australian society, specifically to push back against the loss of cash and the loss of privacy that comes with that. I'm not necessarily great at being in that campaign. I really like the convenience of tap and go, and literally more than half the time, I just don't have any cash on me, and so I just end up paying with a card anyway. But where I can, I do like to use cash. But here's where it gets thorny for me. When I go on a speaking engagement, I go and speak somewhere on stage or at an event or something like that, I'll have some DVDs or some T-shirts or something like that to sell to those that want to buy them, and it helps to cover the costs of flying out there and the time that I spend. So I end up with some cash. The thing for me is, in order for me to track that from a tax point of view, the easiest thing for me to do is to deposit that into the bank. So now I've got it in numbers, and when it comes to reconciling tax at the end of the quarter and at the end of the financial year, it's all there. I actually choose to put cash into the bank. But if I'm now going to be interrogated as to the source of my own money, and then penalised when I try and take it back out again to use it as cash I mean, what kind of a rabbit hole have we gone down? Do you have any understanding, any insight as to the genuine motive for why they're doing this? So saying this is for your protection, or for what?
Well, I think you hinted at the beginning of what you just said when you said, look, you tap and go because it's convenient. Well, we
Mm,
don't trade privacy for security much, but we do trade privacy for convenience.
mm,
And what's happening is now that the overwhelming majority of financial transactions are digital and banks can sell that information in a de-identified format, hopefully,
mm,
put it into big data algorithms,
mm,
they can they know everything about us. They know where you are, what you spend your money on, what you're doing at any particular time. They can aggregate that across the entire population
mm,
and use that information to make a huge sum of money. Meanwhile, they can stigmatize anything that doesn't fit into that system. So if you're using cash, well, only criminals would use cash,
mm,
right? I mean, you tap and go. Everyone is, for convenience
mm,
sake, surrendering that privacy. And in fact, the very idea of privacy as being something that's valuable, something that you want to preserve, itself is being marginalized,
mm,
itself is being stigmatized. The classic, oh, if you've got nothing to hide, then you've got nothing to worry about.
mm.
Well, that goes against the whole notion of our individual sovereignty, our individual right to do with our own property, including money, as we will.
Mm. Well, the very governments that say if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear,
Mm.
they're still the ones, in America's case in particular, chasing the likes of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. If they had nothing to hide, then they had nothing to fear. They should have just been happy for all of that information to have been released to the public. I mean, they don't like it when we use their own logic against them. There seems to be a
Mm.
collision of a few different issues coming from different directions that have all converged on banking and cash at the moment. We have, on the one hand, the financial industry wants to be able to make money selling our big data. They want to make money off the transaction fees. They want to be able to have all the complete control over the financial system. Obviously, if they could do away with cash, banks would save an enormous amount of money. They spend a fortune handling cash and transferring cash, and the Reserve Bank printing it and then taking bad notes out of circulation. There's quite a lot of money involved in that that could be saved if they could just get rid of cash. You've also got this argument against crime, but now we've also got this added layer where corporations are increasingly becoming political. And I want to come back to
Mm.
to the UKIP founder, whose name has suddenly escaped me. Um,
Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage, thank you. Goodness, what a mind blank. And being debanked. Now, he's not the only one. He's since had many hundreds, if not thousands of people reach out to him around the UK and other parts of the world saying, hey, this has also happened to me, and it appears to have been on the basis of my own political leanings. And this is where it gets really dangerous. The elimination of cash might be an inconvenience for those who prefer cash transactions or for certain kinds of transactions like giving a birthday present to your grandchild or these sorts of things. But when there's an added political layer to that, it really starts to become very, very dangerous. In your case, you were targeted a second time. This starts to
Mm.
raise some real questions about, well, maybe the first time was a mistake, maybe someone was an idiot, maybe someone got it wrong. Why have they done it twice to the same person? Do you have any idea?
Well, I don't have a clear answer to that question yet.
Mm,
However, what you raise is absolutely concerning because with banks now having total control over your everyday life, if you get debanked, as it's
mm-hmm,
so called, or your accounts get frozen, then you have been completely ostracized from modern society. You
mm-hmm.
can't pay your bills, you can't eat, you can't travel. That is a severe punishment. In fact, a former parliamentarian reached out to me and said, look, I have been cancelled from all my bank accounts because I received a
Wow.
court-ordered fine, right? And he can't open in any of the big four, which is
Wow.
just a cruel and unusual punishment. He's paid his fine, he's paid his dues, and should rejoin mainstream society. So I think there is a potential. I'm not accusing Westpac of this, but
Sure.
there is a potential that it happened to me again as a sort of form of intimidation, or at least, say, look,
Some sort of a
how much
reprisal.
some sort of reprisal, or perhaps just some sort of pressure to be like,
Mm,
this is can make your life more difficult.
mm,
Because beyond this, I've put forward a petition that's before the Australian Parliament. Everyone can go sign it.
mm-hmm,
It's an Australian's right to banking services, and it says, look, everybody has a right to a working bank account. Everyone can conduct their financial transactions free of any interruption unless required by law,
mm,
and everyone can use cash. And
mm.
so these things are absolutely essential, things that the banks don't want to comply with, and have every reason to try and dissuade.
Well, Crispin, thank you very much for coming on the Aussie Wire and bringing us your story. If anything, your experiences, and like I say, I've been following you on Twitter now for a few weeks, at Crispin Rovere, for those who would like to do the same thing. Your story, if anything, has actually hardened my resolve to really get on board this use cash idea. I'd been, ideologically, I support it, but I really hadn't been accepting of much inconvenience personally in order to actually do it. But seeing what's happened to you right here in Australia with a bank that I have in the past had business with myself, is really kind of lighting a fire under my bum. And I hope a lot of other people will join me in now taking that campaign a lot more seriously and beginning to work a lot more with cash and pushing back against this kind of nonsense. Crispin Rovere, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.